Hello, welcome to Summerfest Online 2020. Thank you very much for coming along to view these presentations. Just a quick reminder that we have a number of exhibitors in the exhibitors hall. If you want to go along and have a quick browse, maybe do some shopping, then we'd love to see you. And a quick reminder too about our wonderful sponsors, Yayo Hemp Products and Butte Island Cheese. They're also in the exhibitors hall and they'd love to see you too. If you've enjoyed the show, please remember this is a free event, and if you'd like to make a small donation, you'd be very welcome. Please go to the Friends of VegFest page to make a donation. And a reminder too, we have another show in November, London Online, and in next March, Plant Powered Expo. And you can find out all about that on VegfestUK. Thanks very much and enjoy the presentation.
Hi, my name is Leila, and I'm a doctor who turned nutritionist. So I'm actually a registered nutritionist now. And I'm also a personal trainer, and I'm an amateur athlete myself. I do Kung Fu. All right, I'm going to start now. So, who here has watched the Game Changers? Come on. Yes, almost everybody, right? And anybody who changed their diet because of the movie? Nice. Really nice. So if you have watched the movie, you know that, you can actually be a vegan and do exceptionally well in your sport. And I don't need to show you any more pictures. But obviously, being a top athlete is not just about diet. It's also about your genetics, your training, and motivation. Some of you might have heard that Fiona Oakes, she says she runs for the animals. And that is her only motivation. And she says that that was actually the reason she could complete the Marathon des Sables. And that is like 250 kilometers across the Sahara Desert. And in fact, many have questioned whether vegan athletes, they do so well because they are motivated by the desire to outdo meat-eating athletes. But there was a review in 1988, and the conclusion was that it is not just the motivation, it's also the diet, which makes vegan athletes do so well. And we know that genes, they are not set in stone. External and internal factors can actually affect gene expression. So your beliefs, your training, and your diet. So, actually the food you eat can change your DNA. But I'm not going to talk about gene expression here. I just wanted to highlight another reason why diet is so important. So in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to talk about how to best fuel your workouts. I'm going to talk about the 3 macronutrients: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And we talk about what to eat pre and post workout. And then at the end, I'm going to show you what 2 vegan amateur athletes eat in a day, in a typical day. So there is going to be some food pictures at the end. So how can you best fuel your workouts? One of the most common problems athletes face is actually consuming enough calories for the increased demand. And that goes both for vegan and non-vegan athletes. But obviously, as vegan athletes, it is more important because we know that plant foods are, not really very high calorie dense. So it is important to, watch that, how to get the calories you need. And how much calories you need depends on your age, gender, weight, metabolism, but also on the intensity of your training. Somebody like Scott Jurek, I don't know if you know him, is an ultra marathon runner. He needs up to 8,000 calories a day. Now, I'm sure most of us here are amateur athletes, and none of us needs actually 8,000 calories. But some of us might actually need 3,000, 4,000 calories. And the question is, how do you get those, that amount of calories? And how do you know how much you need? So we can use the Harris-Benedict equation to calculate your basal metabolic rate. Your basal metabolic rate is basically how much energy you need at rest, just to maintain your normal bodily functions. And as you can see here, there are 2 different, equations for women and men. And once you have that, you can multiply. You need to multiply that by one of these, with one of these numbers. So, and that depends on your activity level. Obviously, sedentary, that means you're not exercising at all. Lightly active, that is if you work out like 1 to 3 days a week, and each time just 20 minutes. Moderately active is if you do 3 to 4 days a week, and each time half an hour to an hour. And very active is if you work out 6 days a week, and each time an hour. And extremely active, that's probably the professional athletes when they train 2 or 3 times a day. And once you know how many calories you need, I would really recommend that you log your food intake in one of the available apps. There are so many apps out there. I'm not recommending that you count calories, but you need to know how much food you actually should consume to get that amount of calories. Because sometimes, if 3,000 calories, what do you need to eat to get that? So we don't know. So it is good, to actually log your food intake and see, how much you need, how many food items. And ideally, if you're really serious about your training, you should also log your training, or at least get feedback, about your performance. So that way you can actually gauge if you are consuming enough calories for your training. So once you know, how many calories you need, the question is what foods should you actually be consuming? There are 3 types of foods, 3 macronutrients: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And carbohydrates and fats, and to a lesser degree proteins, give us actually fuel for our physical activity. But it is only carbohydrates which can fuel our moderate to high intensity activities. So as an athlete, you want your diet to be made up mostly of carbohydrates. And luckily for vegans, a vegan diet is high in carbohydrates. And many say that is actually one of the reasons why vegan athletes do so well in their training. So the message here is carbohydrates are king. I really want you to remember that. So let's have a look at carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are broken down in the body, and they are stored as glycogen in liver and muscle. But those stores only last like up to an hour during continuous steady exercise. And when the stores are low or just empty, that is when you feel, muscle fatigue, or you feel lethargic and lightheaded because the body cannot maintain blood glucose level. This is also known as hitting the wall. So what you want to do is make sure that your diet is really rich in carbohydrate, because that way you can maintain your glycogen stores and you can work out longer before fatigue sets in. It is recommended to have 5 to 12 grams per kg of body weight. And obviously the range depends on the intensity of your exercise. Some days you are just doing low intensity, some days you are resting. And often it is really a matter of trial and error. You need to know your body. You need to actually experiment and see how much you need to perform well. And the best sources of carbohydrates are grains combined with fruits and vegetables. And if you eat that mix, you also get fiber, zinc, magnesium, B vitamins, vitamin C, and a lot of other phytonutrients, really. So that is what you want to aim for. So let's have a look at fats. Fats are essential for the absorption of fat-soluble nutrients. They also play a role in hormone synthesis. But what is more, they are actually a dense source of energy. 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. And that is something you want to bear in mind if you struggle to consume enough calories. You can just add fats to your diet. Now, as I mentioned, carbohydrates are the only fuel which would actually boost and help intense bouts of exercise, because fats don't burn as fast and as efficiently as carbohydrates. But fats are used, for low and long, kind of training, physical activity. And endurance athletes, they can actually increase their body's ability to use fat as fuel. They can do that through through training. But some people have wondered if a high-fat diet could actually achieve the same. And when I'm talking about high-fat diet, I'm talking about low-carb, high-fat diets like keto diets. And there have been a few studies. There were 2 recent studies, and the conclusion was that high-fat diets, they impair bone mineral density. The athletes are less efficient, and the athletes also reported that they experience increased perception of effort. So high-fat diets are not recommended. Also bear in mind, each time you increase your fat intake or even your protein intake, it means that you're consuming less carbohydrates. So before I move on, I just want to say something about low-fat diets. Low-fat diets are defined as less than 15% of your calories from fat. And they're also not recommended because they can cause they can compromise your immune function, and especially in female athletes, they can cause menstrual disorders. So avoid them. Now, proteins. Most people believe that that is actually the most important nutrient when it comes to exercise, and they only focus on that. Proteins' role in body is to provide, the amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of most of body's tissue. So like, immune cells, enzymes, and skeletal muscles, tendons, they are all made of amino acids. And athletes do need extra protein because, exercise actually causes micro damage to your muscle fiber. So you need additional amino acids with the repair, to help with the repair and growth. Now, there are 9 essential amino acids. Essential means that, you cannot, the body doesn't make them. We need to take them in our diet. But as long as you actually eat a variety of different, plant proteins, you get all the amino acids you need. So you don't really need to consciously plan, which food has which essential amino acids. Just make sure that your diet is varied. How much protein do we need? Now, actually, if you only work out 6 to 8 hours per week, you don't need any additional protein. You only need 0.8 gram per kg of lean body mass per day, so like the general population. If you work out more than 8 hours per week, then yes, the consensus of sports nutritionists is that you need 1.2 to 2 gram per kg of lean body mass per day. But bear in mind, these figures are actually per lean body mass. That is not the number you see on the scales. It is going to be less than that. And also, the average vegan diet is already getting 50 to 70% more than the recommended daily allowance. So we are already, most of us are getting, more than 0.8 gram per kg of body weight. And some say that, female athletes need less, but we need more studies to confirm that. Also, what I find interesting is that there are actually scientists who say that athletes don't need any extra, proteins. Their argument is that almost all studies are, they have assessed their results over a short time, and we don't have any long-term data. And they argue that athletes, after a while, their body adapts, and the protein requirement goes back to the baseline. Now, I don't know if that is true or not. It is just a hypothesis. But the reason I'm mentioning is that is because, we are so obsessed with protein. And we know that if we consume too much protein, it can actually have adverse health impacts. And we don't really know, if we really need that amount or less. So the message here is that, as long as you consume enough calories, by default, you're actually consuming more protein. So it's really about the calories. Now, I wasn't quite sure actually if I should talk about protein combining, but a couple of days ago there was an article on BBC and the dietitian was talking about that. Protein combining or complementing, it refers to the idea that we need to eat a combination of certain proteins, plant proteins, in the same meal in order to get all the essential amino acids. But it is a myth. So the idea, they believe that, if you want to have peanut butter, you should have it with bread. If you're having chili, if you're having beans, you should combine it with rice. But it is a myth, and it was dispelled in 1994. However, you will still see dietitians, personal trainers, and lay people talk about it. But you don't need to worry about that. Now, as an amateur athlete, I like actually to see how professionals train, what they eat, and I have been following a lot of vegan athletes to see what they eat, and it is quite interesting. Some of the vegan athletes, even though they might be promoting and selling protein supplements on their websites, they don't take them themselves. Some say they take protein supplements on occasions, but only if they want to increase their caloric intake. So it's not about the protein itself. And I don't know if you have watched the Game Changers, then you know Dotsie Bosch. She was featured in the Game Changers. She's an American Olympic cyclist. And in an interview, she said, if you train 6 to 8 hours a day, you are so tired, you simply cannot eat food. And that is when she likes to take protein supplements, because you get a lot of calories just in a simple shake. And as Dr. Loomis says, it is not the protein we need to worry about, it is the calories. And also bear in mind, the protein supplements are still processed. So because of the manufacturing and production procedures, they contain contaminants. So they have heavy metals, they have chemicals like arsen, lead. And if you really want to consume protein supplements, I would highly recommend you contact the manufacturer and you ask them to disclose the amount of heavy metals in their product. And also, often artificial sweeteners and flavorings are added to the supplements, and we know they are not healthy. And what I found quite shocking is that what they do is, your supplement might say it is pea protein, but it could just be 5 to 10% pea protein. They add what they call it fillers. They add cheap protein sources just to, bulk up the product. The supplement industry is not regulated, and they get away with all of that. So my advice is stay away from them. You can easily get all the protein you need from whole plant foods. And if you struggle, to consume enough calories, take it in a form of a smoothie. It is so much easier to get a large amount of calories, in a smoothie. And sometimes actually a smoothie is much better tolerated pre-workout, which brings us to pre-workout nutrition. Now, whether actually you need any pre-workout snack or not depends on what you ate the day before, on how long and how intense your workout was the day before, and how long and how intense your workout is going to be on the day. There is evidence that a carbohydrate-rich meal 3 to 4 hours intense workout actually helps with the time. It prolongs the time to fatigue, and it boosts their performance. And endurance athletes, they can actually boost their performance by having a carbohydrate snack 30 to 90 minutes before their race. Now, it's not really clear which one is better, 3 to 4 hours before or just half an hour before. But obviously, if you have a race early in the morning, you don't want to wake up 3 to 4 hours before, just to have a snack. So it is enough if you just have a snack, half an hour before the race. So the consensus is, just have a meal, a carbohydrate-rich meal, 1 to 3 hours before training. That should be enough. Now, some people actually tolerate large meals, some people don't. So you really need to know your body and if you tolerate it or not. And that brings us to, working out in fasted state. Again, if you have been consuming enough calories, a few days, before your race, before your intense workout, then there is no reason why you cannot, train and work out, in fasted state. Personally, I do that all the time. But if your workout is going to be long and intense, like more than an hour, then it is a good idea to have like a snack. But sometimes just a piece of fruit is enough. You don't need to have anything big. And you could also decide actually to have a snack during your training rather than pre-workout. Now, during training, we want to consume carbohydrates to boost our performance, to optimize our glycogen stores. And it is recommended to have 30 to 75 grams of carbs per hour if you are going to train longer than an hour. If you're going to take part in an ultra endurance event, you should actually have 90 grams of carbs per hour. And post-workout, you need to replace the lost fluids. lost electrolytes and they lost energy. Now again, it really depends on what you are going to do next. If you're not going to work out the same day or the next day, if you're not going to engage in a high intensity activity later that day or the next day, you don't need to worry about it. Just make sure that you have a carbohydrate-rich meal within 12 hours post-workout, and that would be enough. However, if you're going to train the next day or even the same day, you need to have a carbohydrate snack within 30 minutes post-workout. And if you have been engaging in a long run, lasting more than 90 minutes, you actually need to stock up your glycogen stores with carbohydrates at 2-hour intervals for up to 6 hours. So basically, you need to have 3 snacks every 2 hours after your workout. And as I mentioned, proteins are important, but they come actually secondary, and they help with muscle repair and growth. Here are some ideas of snack ideas post-workout. You can just have a banana with 1 tablespoon peanut butter. You can have an apple and a bagel, a banana and a baked potato, or just simply some nuts with dates. And this way you get carbohydrates and protein at the same time, and then you don't need really to worry about it too much. Now, micronutrients are very important when it comes to exercise because of the demands you're actually putting on your body. It increases your requirement, for micronutrients. And we know that exercise is actually an inflammatory event. So by consuming, a variety of whole plant foods, you get all the phytonutrients. You get antioxidants, anti-inflammatory compounds, anti-allergic and anti-cancerous, compounds. And that will help you with the recovery. And that is actually, again, one of the reasons why plant-based athletes do so well, because they recover faster. When you recover faster, you can train more often. So that helps you, that gives you a winning edge. Now, as long as you consume a diet in rich, whole plant foods, there is no need for any supplements. Obviously, like any other vegan, you need vitamin B12, and during the winter times, you need vitamin D. You might need iodine depending on your diet, so if you're not getting it enough in your diet, but there is no need for supplements at all. Now, next I'm going to show you 2 amateur athletes and what they eat in a day. Unfortunately, I have only 2 guys as example because the female athletes I contacted, they didn't want to take part or they were already taking protein supplements. And I wanted to include people who do not take protein supplements and who are still very active. And it is quite interesting. All the people I spoke to who were taking protein supplements, they told me that they know they don't need it. And I believe it is just bro science. It is really ingrained in us that we need to have protein supplements, but it's a waste of money. So first is Michael. He is a 48-year-old vegan runner. He's actually going to be here tomorrow at the vegan runner stall. He's a cyclist and he's a basketball player. His training is 5 to 6 times a week. He does 5 runs of 8 to 10K, and he only does 1 day of weightlifting, which he said, he includes all the major muscle groups. Now, his diet is a bit unusual. He only has coffee for breakfast, so he does a lot of his exercises actually fasted. Coffee with a lot of plant milk. Then later in the day, he has a large smoothie with 2 bananas, strawberries, 2 tablespoons of flaxseed, and a big chunk of dark chocolate. And his main meal is in the evening. He has a big bowl of salad with avocado, a lot of greens, tomatoes, apple, pear, sun-dried tomatoes, and then he does a mixed veggie kind of stir fry. So it's quite a big one, but he gets all the nutrients he needs from that. Obviously, that is a typical day. He does go out and he does have like vegan burgers and vegan pizzas on occasions, but that is his typical day, what he eats. And he doesn't take any protein supplements, and he doesn't worry about pre and post-workout nutrition, and he manages to do quite well on that diet. Next is Brody. He's a 25-year-old, So he works out quite a lot. He does 2 sessions of cardio, 1 high intensity and 1 slow. He does 3 body weight circuits, 2 pole vaults, and 2 weightlifting sessions. And he also cycles to work every day, well, 5 days a week. And as you saw in the video, he actually also sent me a pull-up video, but I couldn't upload it. So he's quite fit. And again, he doesn't take any protein supplements. And you will see what he eats in a minute. So he consumes actually around 3,000 calories. And as you can see, 2/3 is actually just carbs. That's all he has. And just about 500 calories from protein and 500 fat. Now in the morning, again, he actually works out fasted. His first meal of the day is at 11 o'clock when he has a smoothie bowl. He blends lentils, spinach, cinnamon, turmeric, and mixed berries. And he tops it with avocado, apples, kiwi, and oats and peanut butter. So that is his breakfast. Then for lunch, he has rice with, again, a mixed vegetable, like I think it was sweet potato, lentils, spinach, peppers, and tomatoes. By the way, I have the recipes if everybody wants them. He sent me the recipes too. And in the evening, he has a Buddha bowl. So you see tempeh, chickpeas, sweet potatoes, more broccoli, and he has a salad of cabbage and kale. Again, he doesn't have anything pre and post workout. If he really feels hungry, he has a piece of fruit before he goes for his workouts. And he's doing quite well. So really, you want to make sure that your diet is rich in carbohydrates, and you want to aim for complex carbs. So you want whole plant foods. You want to make sure that your diet is full of micronutrients, because that is what is going to help you to recover, and that is going to help you, to repair those muscle damages. All right, thank you. That's it for me. If you have any questions.